Guys, I'm told the Knicks have internal meetings this week to evaluate everything from the roster, different changes they could make around everything, but especially the roster. If the last year and a half is any indication, Knicks president Leon Rose has gone out and gotten OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Karl-Anthony Towns. I expect him to be just as aggressive this offseason, whether it's a landmark player that you could bring in there or definitely depth on that bench.
So when evaluating the New York Knicks this offseason, I don't think they necessarily need to make any drastic changes. We talked about Giannis yesterday, which I think personally would be amazing. I mean, it's Giannis, obviously it would be. But the bench is going to be the focal point of today's video because the Pacers were just a deeper team than us. And just like last season, it caught up at the end of the series in Game 6. The Knicks just looked like they ran out of gas. They put everything into Game 5 and then they just brought nothing the next game for some reason. Well, I think the reason is going to be just the bench. The Knicks starting lineup played 13 more games than the Pacers because of how much Tibbs likes to run them to the ground. So the Knicks should go out there in the offseason and get a couple of reliable veteran bench pieces. The first one that we're going to be talking about is Al Horford. Now, I understand his age. It's actually his birthday today, so happy birthday to Al Horford. He's 39 years old, coming off of a season where he averaged 9 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 2.1 assists. Horford shot the three ball very well overall, guys. 36.3% on 5.2 attempts, 42.3% from the floor. I mean, Al Horford, again, he's not coming in and starting next to Cat or next to Mitch or anything crazy like that. He's just a bench centerpiece who can come in and play 10 to 15 minutes a night and keep Cat and Mitch fresh for the playoffs. You look at what he did last season for the Celtics. He averaged 9 points, 36.3% from 3 on 5.2 attempts. Defensively, not the same player he was a couple of years ago, but overall, he had a defensive estimated plus minus of 1.1, which actually, wow, that's higher than the previous 3 seasons for him. So he's actually a better defender this season than he was the last 2. Very remarkable. And the Knicks starting 5, including Mitchell Robinson. So Mikal, OG, Brunson, Hart, and Cat, and then Mitch, that makes 93% of the payroll. So with that being said, the Knicks are not going to be able to do anything crazy, right? They're not going to be able to go out there and get Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Naz Reid. Like, that's not happening. So Al Horford, I would contact him and be like, hey, look, we know that you want to play maybe one more season. You want to compete for a championship. The Celtics obviously don't have the finances to be able to bring you back. Come to us. You're going to play off the bench. Not going to play that much, obviously, but we're competing for a championship, and we could use your presence in the locker room. We also could use your ability to protect the rim and to shoot the three ball and to play with Cat, who's one of your best friends. Of course, you look at the Dominican basketball team, both Cat and Horford have been playing on that for a while now. So it makes too much sense for the Knicks to ignore. I get people are going to look at he's 39. They're going to get that they've got Mitch and Cat, but I personally believe that the Knicks should start Karl-Anthony Towns next to Mitchell Robinson and bring Josh Hart off the bench with guys like Shamet and then who we're about to talk about next, which is Chris Paul. So hear me out before you race to the comments, because when I first saw this on Twitter, I didn't like it as well. But then I started to really think about it. And Tyler Kolek, he's a developmental player. I don't think he's going to necessarily be ready to come in and play key minutes for the Knicks off of the bench next to Deuce McBride. Or, of course, if like Brunson were to get hurt, Deuce would insert in the starting lineup. And then that's where Chris Paul comes to my mind immediately. He's sort of like Al Horford. They're both older at the end of their career, just trying to compete for a championship. But Chris Paul, I mean, he just started 82 games for the Spurs. Of course, 7.4 assists, 8.8 points, about 4 rebounds, 3.6. Didn't shoot the ball that great. What was he from 3? CP3, I mean, he actually did 37.7% from 3. So Chris Paul can still knock down the 3 ball. He's a very good passer. And I would love him in the locker room with a guy like a PJ Tucker and an Al Horford. I mean, that goes a long way. I get a lot of Knicks fans might want somebody who maybe can offer them a little bit more upside. But to this point, it's championship or bust for the Knicks. They just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. It was a great run, but now they got to seriously try to win a championship. I think Chris Paul will help them do that. At the end of the day, the more depth, the better. I mean, to that point, if the Knicks were to sign Chris Paul, they would have Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, and of course, Tyler Kolek running the guard position, and then Mikal, of course, Hart. Like, they could play multiple positions. You have Landry Shamet. and then Become Dadier. So I'm just looking at Chris Paul and what he would look like inside of this rotation. Jalen Brunson would be the starting point guard. And then off the bench, you'd have Deuce McBride, who's more of a combo guard, more of a two guard, of course, but with Landry Shamet hopefully coming back. I mean, he's going to play the two off of the bench. So you essentially would have to run, of course, Deuce and then Shamet. And then hopefully Become Dadier could slide into that backup 3, backup 4. Precious Achiuwa, bring him back. And then at the 5 would be Al Horford. I actually really like that rotation. Chris Paul, his fit, again, would just be as a veteran presence guy who also can come in and just relieve Brunson, relieve Deuce. And he would just kind of be like the new DeLon Wright, which I love Wright's defense, but I'd rather have Chris Paul than DeLon Wright. Just because, Chris Paul, I mean, although he hasn't won a championship, which is sad to say because I like Chris Paul, man. He's a really good player, of course, a good guy. I covered him in Houston for a couple of seasons when he was there. But just having him to work with a Jalen Brunson, I mean, Chris Paul is probably a top 5 point guard ever. You guys might disagree because of the no championship. I think Charlotte, Chris Paul is a top 5 player. Even when he was in Houston at the back end of his career, he was still an all-star. He was still one of the best players. So I'd love for him to work with Brunson. I'd love for him to work with Deuce. And then to also have a guy who knows the game of basketball better than pretty much anyone in the league besides LeBron. And also have the ability to still impact the game. Of course, being that he averaged 9 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, and he shot 37.7% from 3. I mean, I would love to have Chris Paul here, man. I mean, he's a point god is what they call him for a reason. He's a floor general. And it's basically just a DeLon Wright type of role, but also having another on-court coach. Like PJ Tucker, I thought made a big impact in this locker room. I think Chris Paul would do the same, but he's also good enough to this point to where he could still play because he's just an absolute genius at the game of basketball. So Al Horford and Chris Paul, 2 veterans. Al Horford's won a championship. Chris Paul, of course, he's been playing the game at an elite level for 2 decades, right? To be honest, I wouldn't hate it at all if some Knicks fans would rather just run Tyler Kolek off of the bench with Deuce McBride and Landry Shamet. I mean, at the end of the day, the Knicks did draft him, and I think he's got potential. But just looking at where the current team is, the more veterans, the better. OKC, they got lucky. They got all these young studs out there to build around, but they're also in the finals. The Knicks, though, they got OG, Hart, and Brunson, and Cat. These guys are all relatively the same age. I mean, they're in their later 20s, right? Pushing towards that early 30s. So to have a Chris Paul and an Al Horford with them, I think will go a long way. I think veterans is definitely the move to have a veteran-heavy roster, especially because it's Tibbs, but also this isn't the Pistons, right? It's not the Houston Rockets. The Knicks are in win-now mode, and they'll have plenty of time to develop Kolek and Dadier down the line. But next season, they got to go get a championship. Let me know if you guys agree or you disagree. It's your boy, Knicks Daily. Smash the like button, subscribe, share it with your buddies, and I'm out. Until next time.